Hi there, I'm Lewis Foster, a reporter up here in the Manx Radio newsroom. You may have heard overnight about plans to close down Cummal Mooar residential home in Ramsey, whilst plans for a replacement facility in the north have been shelved. Well, since the news, we've been hearing from residents' families about just how much of an impact this will have. Manx Care says it will work with the residents and their families to ensure they're moved to appropriate alternative accommodation, and the health body says there will be a facility in the north in the coming years, but it's likely that Cummal Mooar will be closed before this becomes available. It adds there will be no immediate redundancies. Well, for context, the building of a replacement facility was approved by the Department of Health and Social Care in 2018. It was due to be constructed on land at the Cummal Mooar site on Waterloo Road. Plans for it were submitted in January last year. At that stage, it was predicted to cost £12.75 million. Manx Care says the decision not to go ahead is due to the reduced demand for residential care and a need to review long-term needs of services in the north. It's also blamed a significant increase in construction costs, adding the most recent estimate for the project has risen to more than £13 million, double the initial estimate. Cummal Mooar, which has 46 beds, opened in 1981 and is one of 3 centres run by Manx Care, which provides residential care for older people. Due to its age, the Queen's Promenade facility has been deemed not entirely fit for purpose, and Manx Care is now claiming that analysis of the future direction of residential care shows that facilities like this will not be so widely required in the future. Instead, it claims social work staff will aim to support people in their own homes through a home-first approach so that people are not prematurely accommodated in long-term care. It adds that it will engage with colleagues, residents and their families and the public to plan for the future, stating there will be a facility in the north in the coming years, but we cannot currently confirm what this will look like as we need to listen to the views of local people. Staff have been made aware of the change to previous plans. Well, almost 24 hours after this news was put out, I spoke with Vicki Hewison. Her mum is in Cummal Mooar and says this news has been like a bombshell to residents and their families. She's since launched a petition for government to reconsider the move. She told me about the impact it will have.
My mum moved in permanently on the 20th of June, and up to that point we were under the impression, and we were being told by the staff there, that there was going to be a new facility built on what was the old Cummal Mooar site. It now transpires that there's no money in the kitty and this isn't going to happen. But to make matters worse, that Cummal Mooar itself is going to be decommissioned within the next 2 years. It's absolutely awful. I mean, I found out actually on Facebook. And then matters literally yesterday snowballed. I went down to try and manage the situation with my mum, who, has the onset dementia and is not in the best of health. They hadn't been told themselves. Obviously, the staff were aware. They couldn't say anything. They couldn't warn relatives. It was just a diabolical situation to be put in. And then when I was actually there trying to reassure my mum that she wasn't going to be put out on the street, because there's a lot of fear in the residents. These are elderly people. They're not just pieces of paper. These are human beings who have just been handed a letter at about 5:30 last night telling them that, oh yes, within the next 2.5 years, you are going to be basically moved from here with no clear plan of where they're going to go at this point.
You mentioned there how distressing this can be as well. And for everything you're having to go through at the moment, thinking about your mum's well-being in general and, like you say, only several weeks ago, setting up plans for the future, to have that uncertainty thrown in there, just what effect has that had on your own mental health in the last 48 hours and the residents around Cummal Mooar as well?
Well, the residents are certainly upset. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I know some ladies have been in there for several years and they were absolutely distraught. From my own perspective, I've already gone through the ringer because I've had to move my mum from sheltered housing. So she hasn't gone from her own house. She's already been in the system, so to speak. But to make that move then into a residential is a huge one for any family to take. So we've already gone through a lot of distress there. And we were hoping that this was going to be the last move for my mother. And now to find that we're in this state of flux again, we don't know what's happening. How do you manage your parents' well-being when you don't know yourself? I can't hand on heart say, it's okay, I know what's happening to you, because I don't. In the letter that was given out, the meeting for the relatives is on the 23rd of August. That's almost 4 weeks away. That's 4 weeks of absolute hell. When you're elderly, small matters, they get magnified out of all proportion. So I really don't know how I'm going to be, or certainly my mum and the other residents are going to be at that point, because I don't have answers to give them. And nobody seems to be prepared to say, yes, here we are, this is what's going to happen. We need answers now.
And tell us about Cummal Mooar itself. You say there are clear signs of wear and tear in the building. There is, an apparent need for a replacement down the line, but in terms of the quality of care that is available there, you can't fault it.
The staff there are phenomenal. They are supremely well trained. They treat the residents as if they're like family members. The atmosphere in there is amazing. And I would say that any professional that's been in there would absolutely back that up. The family members that I've spoken to who have relatives in there, they all love the facilities and the care that their loved ones are given. We really can't knock it. Yes, it is an old building. That goes without saying. And yes, there could be improvements. However, if there is no alternative, you can't just take that away from people. There needs to be a facility available in the north of the island.
Focusing on the north as well, the statement from Manx Care says, while this is all taking place over the next couple of years, they need to review the long-term needs of services in the north. Does that spark concerns for you? I mean, you've mentioned it here in the petition that you're concerned residents who've lived in Ramsey their entire life, your mother included, might end up being turfed out to Douglas or elsewhere on the island.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've grown up, my mum grew up in South Ramsey, where Cummal Mooar is. Yes, she's had a little bit of time away from that, but she's always gravitated back to there. Nobody in their elderly years should be forced to go and live in an area that they're not familiar with. It's distressing for them. It's distressing for the relatives and friends. There's also questions whether people will be able to get to visit them if they're put in other care home facilities, perhaps in Douglas or further afield. Because let's face it, there is a problem in this sector. There is not a glut of available beds. There is a problem. So by taking away 49 rooms, which is what they're doing in closing Cummal Mooar, this is only going to add to the pressure. There was a report in 2020 which was commissioned by the government, and it clearly states that there is a need for an additional 200 beds. Now, that's without taking Cummal Mooar out of the equation. So I cannot comprehend why they are going ahead with this.
So your message to Manx Care would be, when it talks about reviewing the need for services in the north, is there any need for a review in your mind?
There's a need for action. I think you can review all you want. Pieces of paper mean nothing. Actions are what count. We need people to stand up and say enough is enough to the government. Stop wasting money on tin sheds in Liverpool. Start concentrating on your community. The people who, let's not forget, have paid in all their lives to fund other projects. So come on, give them a bit of respect that they deserve.
And let's talk about the reaction to your petition then. You mentioned the Ramsey Community Pin Board on Facebook. A lot of reaction on there last night when this news came out into the media as well. And your petition, when I checked it this morning, had several hundred signatures already. What feedback have you been hearing from other people who are in the same situation as you?
People are horrified. I know several of the other residents' relatives, and we've all been chatting over WhatsApp, and they don't know what to do, and they don't want their relatives to be moved out of Ramsey. Yes, there is a good groundswelling. We will be doing a paper petition as well. It's just that literally this is all sort of like romping away, and we need to sort of like play catch up. But I have been contacted by a couple of MHKs. Not by either of the Ramsey MHKs, I have to say. I'm actually a resident of Laxey, and neither of the Laxey MHKs have been in touch either, although they have been tagged in on posts that have been done. But other MHKs have been in contact. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that.
And ultimately, the petition is calling for government to push back and reverse this decision. What would you like to see done to at least give you some clarity about what can happen and like you say, assurances over your mother's position in the next couple of years?
All right, the ideal situation right here, right now, is to stop this dead in its tracks. My concern is that the amazing staff that are there, and I really can't emphasise this enough, how fantastic the team is there. A lot of them have been there for 20 odd years, and that speaks volumes of the actual atmosphere and that is created within that building. It needs to be stopped now, so staff don't start panicking. They don't start looking for other jobs. They need to be retained. They need to have surety and clarity that their jobs are still there. And really, the decision just needs to be put on hold. I'm not saying that Cummal Mooar does not need to be closed at some point in the future. It will do. But stop this ludicrous decision to take it away without there being a replacement facility.
Vicki Hewison there, and you can find a link to her petition under this story at manxradio.com. Well, residents and their families have been invited to a meeting at the facility on Wednesday, the 23rd of August. Manx Radio has invited Manx Care to put forward a spokesperson for comment. We've not yet received a response. Since recording the interview with Vicki, though, we've heard from Ramsey MHK Dr Alex Allinson, who says, "I was surprised by the announcement made by Manx Care regarding the future of Cummal Mooar yesterday and have been contacted by a member of staff already. The facility itself is now dated and doesn't offer the degree of facilities now required by modern standards. I'm aware that the plans to build a replacement facility had received some objections from local residents and the cost of the project had increased considerably due to inflation. It's important, he says, that the current residents and staff are fully reassured about their future and that a full assessment of the care needs for people in the north is undertaken so replacement facilities can be properly planned. I've requested a meeting with Manx Care, he says, to discuss this issue further." Well, that's all for this edition of Newscast. I'm Lewis Foster. Guramayad. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.